Welcome back, Chosen One. Let's skip the part where we pretend you didn't already feel it, because you did. Long before anyone said a word out loud, you felt the tone in the room shift under your feet. The jokes that used to land stopped landing. The conversation that used to talk over you slowed down and started watching first, speaking second. That wasn't confidence quietly growing in them out of nowhere. That was recognition arriving. And recognition, by its very nature, always arrives late. It never shows up early. It never shows up on time. It shows up exactly when it's forced to, kicking and dragging its feet the entire way in. Go back to the beginning. Remember exactly what they told you, word for word, because you never forgot it. Relax. You're overthinking this. Know your place. They said it laughing, because laughing is the cheapest possible way to avoid dealing with someone they don't understand yet. Laughter costs nothing. It requires no evidence, no argument, no proof. It's a shield built entirely out of noise. They dismissed you because dismissal is safer than admitting there's a potential in front of them they can't measure, can't predict, and can't control. Funny thing though, look who's whispering now. Look who suddenly wants a meeting, an update, a friendly little check-in that has nothing friendly about it. The same mouths that joked now choose their words, like they're crossing a frozen lake, testing every step before committing weight to it. The same eyes that used to skip right past you now track your every move, frame by frame, like you're something they need to file a report on later. They said you'd burn out. You kept moving. They said you didn't have the backing. The path cleared itself in front of you anyway, one door at a time, without asking anyone's permission. They said it wouldn't last. It lasted long enough to become the exact thing that keeps them lying awake, staring at ceilings, replaying conversations they wish they'd handled differently. Here's what they will never, ever admit to each other in daylight. Someone noticed you early. Not the loudest person in the room. The sharpest one. Someone who reads patterns the way other people read headlines. Quickly, and without needing anyone's approval to trust what he's seeing. When the panic started leaking out from behind closed doors, they went straight to him and begged him to step in. Talk to them. Slow them down. Save them from themselves, they said, as if that phrase meant anything other than save us from what we already lost. They dressed it up as concern, wrapped it in soft language, called it care. But concern doesn't sweat the way they were sweating. Concern doesn't lower its voice and glance at the door the way they did. Talk to them, they said. Please, just tell them what's coming before it's too late. He didn't argue with them. He didn't negotiate, didn't ask questions, didn't need a single follow-up meeting to think it over. He smiled. Not the warm kind. Not the encouraging, reassuring kind you give someone you're rooting for. This was the smile of a man who had already run the numbers 3 separate times, from 3 separate angles, and landed on the exact same answer every single time. The kind of smile that doesn't need to explain itself, because it already knows it's right and has stopped caring whether anyone else agrees. When they asked him, desperate, quiet, almost pleading, whether he could still stop what was coming, he gave them 2 words. Just 2. No elaboration. No cushioning. No apology. And those 2 words landed heavier in that room than any threat anyone had ever delivered before. Too late. Not dramatic, not emotional, just accurate. The way a diagnosis is accurate. The way a verdict is accurate. The way a closing door is accurate, whether or not you're ready for it to close. If this is landing exactly where it's supposed to land, hit like and subscribe right now. Not for me, for the signal. That's genuinely how the right people keep finding messages like this one, buried in a feed built to bury them. Now, back to the part that actually keeps them awake at 3 in the morning. You think this happened overnight. It didn't. Nothing this permanent ever does. This started years ago, quietly, back when you first learned how to stay silent, while you absorbed absolutely everything around you. Back when you watched people expose themselves simply by talking too much, revealing their entire hand while you said nothing, filed it away, and kept building. Back when you took losses that should have broken almost anyone, and instead of shattering you, they rewired you completely, piece by piece, from the inside out. Most people collapse the second a plan falls apart in front of them. You didn't collapse, you adjusted. And that single difference, the ability to adjust instead of collapse, is worth more in the long run than talent will ever be worth on its own, no matter how much people love to worship talent. They were never actually afraid of your noise. Noise is easy. Noise can be managed, predicted, drowned out. What they're afraid of is your silence. The fact that you don't rush. You don't explain yourself to people who haven't earned an explanation, and you don't ask permission before you move in a new direction. You carry yourself like someone who already accepted the worst possible outcome a long time ago and kept walking forward anyway, fully aware of the risk and unbothered by it. That kind of calm terrifies any system built entirely on control, because control depends on fear, and you stop supplying the fear it needed to function. Look at history, if you don't believe it applies to you yet. Every real shift in power follows the exact same arc, over and over, across every era, every industry, every family, every friend group. The underestimated one works quietly in plain sight, gets mocked, gets sidelined, gets advised by people who've never walked a single mile in the direction you're walking. And then, one day, without warning, the entire tone flips. Suddenly it's, we should have listened. Suddenly it's, we didn't think they'd actually go this far. Suddenly it's, how did we miss this? It was right in front of us the whole time. They missed it because they were watching titles instead of pressure tolerance, counting followers instead of measuring endurance, measuring approval instead of resilience. While they were busy keeping score on a scoreboard that never mattered, you were quietly building something they don't even have the vocabulary to describe yet, let alone stop. Here's the cold, uncomfortable fact they choke on every single time this pattern repeats. The moment they sent someone to warn you was the exact moment they admitted total defeat, whether they realized it or not. Winners don't send warnings. Winners act, immediately, without asking for a meeting first. Warnings only ever come from people who already lost their leverage and know it deep down, even if they haven't said it out loud yet. They don't actually need you to stop anymore. It's far too late for that. What they need now is time, more time, any amount of time they can buy. And time stopped negotiating with them the exact second you stopped doubting yourself. This is what we'll call the aftermath phase. The storm has already passed clean through you. What you're standing in right now, today, is the strange, eerie quiet that follows real impact. The part where everyone around you pretends nothing has changed, while quietly, frantically rearranging everything behind closed doors. Invitations feel different lately, don't they? Resistance feels softer, almost apologetic, like it's trying not to leave fingerprints. Criticism arrives pre-cushioned, sounding rehearsed, like it went through 3 drafts before it reached you. You are not imagining any single part of this. The universe doesn't whisper the same message twice. It shifts once, decisively, and then everyone else is left scrambling to catch up to the new terms of a game they didn't know had already changed. They wanted you scared. You got calm instead. They wanted you confused. You got clear instead. They wanted control over your direction. You chose your own direction entirely, without consulting them. That is exactly why too late wasn't cruelty when it was said. It was the single most honest sentence spoken out loud in that entire room all year. There is no undo button waiting for someone who already outgrew the room they used to be small enough to fit inside. Second quick ask, right here at the emotional turn. Drop 777 in the comments if you're still with me all the way to this point. Not for luck. As a quiet signal that you understand something most people never will. Isolation, silence, and being underestimated were never punishments handed down to you. They were preparation disguised as punishment, so you wouldn't quit before it mattered. Take a breath. We're fully done warming up now. From here forward, we go much deeper. And this is exactly where the truth stops asking anyone in that room for permission to be spoken out loud. The 14 truths. Number 1. When the warning arrives wrapped in a friendly voice, the war is already over. People do not send a gentle, familiar messenger to someone they can still fully control. They send one the exact moment they become the ones actually in danger. Ask yourself the obvious question, the one they hope you never ask. Why now? Why not back when you were struggling, isolated, barely holding the pieces of your own life together with both hands? Back then, nobody warned you about anything at all. Nobody rushed in to protect you from what was coming for you. They simply watched. Some of them enjoyed watching. Some quietly bet against you and privately hoped you'd fold completely, just so they'd never have to face the version of you that actually survives real, sustained pressure without breaking. They mistook your silence for defeat. That was their first mistake. Your silence was you quietly observing every pattern in the room, while they carelessly exposed their own habits, one careless sentence at a time. They mistook your patience for weakness, their second mistake. Your patience was you learning timing, while they rushed straight toward short-term comfort. They mistook your withdrawal for total surrender, and that one was fatal for them. Your withdrawal was you stepping fully out of the noise so you could rebuild in peace, without interference, without an audience, without anyone's permission required. Every single time they assumed you were finished, you were quietly recalibrating in the background. Every time they assumed you'd finally break, you adapted instead, 1 degree at a time. While they measured their own progress in applause and likes and approval, you were measuring something else entirely: endurance. That is the exact kind of growth nobody ever sees coming, because true growth like that never announces itself in advance with a headline or a warning shot. Number 2. The room went completely quiet because power had already left it days earlier. Fear always calls a meeting. Confidence never once needs one. Picture it clearly, because some version of this happened, somewhere, in some form, exactly the way we're about to describe it. A closed room. Phones turned face down on the table, deliberately, like that alone could protect a secret. Voices dropped low, almost to a whisper, as if secrecy still had any real power left to offer them. They called it alignment. They called it a proactive discussion. That's cute. What it actually was, underneath all the professional language, was panic wearing a freshly pressed blazer, pretending it still had a full set of options on the table. This is exactly what people do the instant reality starts moving faster than their ability to control it. They gather in a circle. They reassure each other with hollow phrases like, "Let's be proactive," and "We still have time." And nobody, not a single person in that room, says the real sentence out loud. The real sentence is simply this: we misjudged them completely from the very start. Nobody says it, because admitting that means admitting the failure was theirs, and it happened years earlier, quietly, while they were too busy underestimating you to notice. Someone in that room said your name carefully, like it might bite them if handled wrong. Someone else sighed and said this whole situation was getting out of hand. Someone tried, weakly, to downplay it, insisting you were still manageable, still predictable, still reachable by the old methods. That is always, without exception, the exact phase right before a full collapse: denial, holding a clipboard, pretending to take notes on a situation that already ended. Picture a group of people standing around an old dam they've been ignoring for years, suddenly noticing hairline cracks spreading across the concrete. Nobody in that group wants to admit they skipped every single round of maintenance, so instead they argue over paint colors while water starts quietly seeping through the wall behind them. That was that meeting, in a nutshell. Cosmetic concern layered thick over genuine structural failure underneath. They dressed their terror up as care and called it an intervention. They said things like, "We should talk to them before this escalates any further," as if escalation hadn't already happened weeks ago, as if you hadn't already moved several stages beyond the version of yourself they still thought they were dealing with. Here's the part they never planned for, and never saw coming. One single person in that room wasn't panicking at all. He wasn't scrambling for a solution. He wasn't even talking much. He was watching. Watching who spoke first out of nervous instinct. Watching who avoided eye contact the second the conversation turned serious. Watching exactly how quickly authority in that room dissolved into raw anxiety once nobody was pretending anymore. Because experience had already taught him something simple and brutal. When power starts leaking out of a room, the noise level in that room always increases to compensate. He knew something they desperately did not want to hear out loud. You cannot stop real momentum by discussing it politely in a locked room. You cannot reverse genuine evolution with borrowed concern. And you absolutely cannot regain lost leverage by pretending fear dressed in a suit is the same thing as strategy. Someone finally said the quiet part. Maybe you should reach out to them personally. Not because they suddenly cared about you as a person, but because they were hoping raw familiarity might succeed where formal authority had already, publicly, humiliatingly failed. They needed a specific kind of messenger. Someone who could approach you without instantly triggering resistance. Someone who could soften the hard truth. Someone who might quietly plant a seed of doubt where none currently existed. That's the exact moment they all turned and looked at him, and that's the exact moment the room lost the rest of its heat completely. He had already seen this specific pattern play out before, more than once, in different rooms, with different faces, carrying the exact same nervous energy. The precise moment a group finally realizes the story no longer centers around them. The precise moment their influence slips quietly out through the back door, while every single person in the room is still busy talking over each other, unaware the conversation has already ended in every way that matters. He understood something brutally simple that none of them had figured out yet. You do not warn a storm. You do not negotiate with something that has already become inevitable. You do not interrupt someone who already crossed a threshold weeks or months ago. You don't fear what you can still stop with enough effort. You fear what has already, permanently, escaped your reach. When they begged him to intervene, and it really was begging, not a polite suggestion, his answer didn't come from any emotional place inside him. It came from pure clarity. 2 words, no explanation attached, no cushioning offered, no apology extended. Too late. Imagine dropping a full glass in a completely silent room and watching it shatter across the floor in slow motion. That's exactly what those 2 words did to that room. The temperature changed instantly, physically, like someone had opened a window in winter. Bodies stiffened around the table, eyes widened. Someone laughed nervously, hoping against hope it was some kind of joke. It wasn't a joke, and everyone in that room knew it wasn't a joke within about 2 seconds. He didn't raise his voice even slightly. He didn't feel the need to justify what he'd just said, because too late isn't actually a threat aimed at anyone. It's a timestamp, a recorded fact. At that exact moment, everyone sitting in that room finally understood something they had all been quietly avoiding for weeks. This was never about fixing anything anymore. This was purely about consequences unfolding on their own schedule now, with or without the room's input. The plan hadn't started failing that day. It had already failed a while ago. They were simply, finally, catching up to a timeline that had left without them. Number 3. You didn't evolve loudly, on a stage, for an audience. You evolved somewhere they couldn't see, underground, out of frame. They expected your entire transformation to look like a headline, visible, loud, emotional, easily documented, something they could chart on a whiteboard and explain to each other so they'd feel safe again. They were watching closely for an explosion, a breakdown, a dramatic exit scene worth gossiping about. Growth, they assumed, would announce itself the way a headline announces itself. It never did, because you didn't get louder or bigger on the outside at all. You got fundamentally different underneath the surface, where none of their monitoring tools could reach. While they were carefully measuring your visible output, you were quietly rebuilding how you process pressure from the ground up. While they were busy counting your public reactions, you were stripping away every unnecessary attachment holding you back. They kept a close eye on the mask, the performance, the visible daily habits. Meanwhile, the actual shift was happening entirely in places they simply don't have access to and never did. Imagine them sitting in front of a radar screen, fully confident they can see everything moving across the sky above them. It never once occurred to them to look underground, beneath the surface, at what was actually shifting down there. They never considered that the most dangerous kind of change isn't a louder signal broadcast for everyone to hear. It's an entirely new operating frequency they don't even have the equipment to detect. You didn't raise your voice at all. You changed frequency completely. And the second that happens, all of their old tools simply stop working, no matter how sophisticated they think those tools are. They expected rage from you. You chose restraint instead. They expected chaos. You simplified everything instead. They expected total collapse. You stabilized instead, quietly, without an announcement. That's exactly why they misread every single signal you gave off. Calm looks like weakness, only to people who are personally addicted to noise. Quiet feels like surrender, only to people who've only ever learned to respect raw force. Your stillness confused them deeply, because it simply didn't match their internal definition of what real power was supposed to look like. They believed power meant volume. You had already learned, the hard way, that power actually means control. Number 4. You didn't walk away from them dramatically. You exited their entire framework quietly, without ever announcing it. They thought they still had access to you. That single assumption was their biggest mistake. Your silence was never obedience, and your calm was never compliance. That's simply the comfortable lie they told themselves, so they could sleep at night without confronting the real situation. While they were busy congratulating each other for handling you so smoothly, you were quietly uninstalling yourself from their entire system, piece by piece, without a single announcement. No drama, no exit speech, just a clean, total disconnect that they didn't even notice happening in real time. They assumed you were still playing by their rules simply because you didn't argue out loud. They assumed you were still sitting somewhere on their board because you didn't resist them loudly or publicly. That's exactly how shallow control always operates. It mistakes quiet for consent, and it mistakes peace for defeat, every single time, without fail. Imagine a chess player who simply stands up from the table, walks calmly into an entirely different room, while their opponent keeps making moves across the board, fully convinced they're still winning a game that ended the moment you left. That is precisely what happened here. You didn't flip the board over dramatically. You didn't knock a single piece to the floor. You simply stopped existing inside their framework altogether, on your own terms, at a time of your own choosing. The single most powerful move available to anyone is leaving completely without ever explaining yourself. You stepped fully outside their approval loops, their quiet expectations, their small punishments, and their smaller rewards. And here's the part that genuinely rattled them to their core. The universe didn't collapse the moment you left. It adjusted instead, calmly, in your favor. Doors began opening differently for you. Timing itself started favoring your decisions without being asked to. Situations began bending in your direction instead of blocking you outright. People started responding to you without needing to be prompted first. That's precisely when real panic set in for them, because they couldn't categorize what was happening. You weren't rebelling, so they couldn't label you a threat in the usual familiar way. You weren't failing, so they couldn't dismiss you outright. You weren't asking for anything, so they couldn't control you through the usual channels. You had become, essentially, an error in their entire system, an outcome that no longer matched any of their expected inputs. Number 5, he saw exactly what they can't admit, even to themselves. You didn't recover from the damage they caused. You learned how to run on it instead, like fuel. This is the exact part they cannot sit comfortably with. The reason conversations noticeably stop the second your name comes up unexpectedly. He knows something true about you that quietly breaks every coping story they've built for themselves. You didn't simply survive what they put you through. Surviving alone would have left you bitter, loud, permanently stuck explaining yourself to anyone who'd listen. You did something far worse for them, from their perspective. You metabolized the entire experience completely. Every betrayal, every quiet setup, every single time they left you hanging, and secretly hoped you'd crumble under the weight of it. You processed all of it like raw fuel instead of poison. No public drama, no dramatic meltdown for an audience. It went straight into your system and came back out the other side as pure clarity. That is not healing the way they understand healing. That is conversion. Turning damage directly into efficiency, without wasting a single ounce of it. Imagine two separate people who both touch the exact same fire. One of them spends the rest of their life carefully avoiding any kind of heat ever again. The other one learns, slowly and deliberately, how to forge steel using that same heat. That is the entire difference they completely missed while they were busy underestimating you. They assumed pain would make you fragile and easy to break. Instead, it made you precise, patient, and far harder to predict. Some people heal simply to feel better again. Others heal specifically to become unstoppable, and there is a real difference between the two. They expected anger from you. They waited around for revenge. They assumed you'd eventually need closure, an apology, a long explanation that ties everything up neatly. That's how they personally measure growth in other people. But you outgrew every single one of those expectations, without even trying. You didn't forgive them in order to free them from guilt. You detached completely in order to free yourself instead. That is a level very few people ever actually reach in their lifetime, and it genuinely terrifies anyone who relies on emotional hooks to keep people close and controllable. Number 6. You found the exit they desperately never wanted anyone else to know existed in the first place. The single most dangerous realization any person can ever have is understanding that participation was always entirely optional the whole time. This is the secret they quietly pray never spreads beyond you, because the moment it does, their entire structure collapses under its own weight, quietly, without a single loud confrontation required. You figured out something simple that they depend on nobody else ever noticing. You are allowed to opt out completely. No rebellion required. No dramatic confrontation staged for effect. Just a clean, quiet refusal to keep playing games that were never actually designed for you to win in the first place. They built entire hierarchies, rankings, invisible approval ladders, assuming every single person would keep chasing the exact same carrots forever. Status, validation, permission granted from above. The moment you stop chasing those things entirely, their grip on you loosened instantly, without a single fight required on either side. Imagine an entire casino where one single player simply stands up mid-game, calmly cashes out their chips, and walks straight out the front door, while everyone else at the table keeps betting harder and harder, fully convinced the next hand is finally going to save them. That is exactly you in this story. You didn't beat the house at its own game. You exposed the entire house simply by choosing to leave it behind. Nobody can control someone who no longer needs their scoreboard to measure their own worth. You eventually realized their opinions never actually touched objective reality at all. They only echo loudly inside the specific rooms they personally control. Outside of those rooms, their opinions are just background noise, nothing more. Number 7. They genuinely thought you were isolated and cut off. You had already been quietly recruited somewhere else entirely. This is exactly where their fear quietly curdles into real dread. They truly believed isolation would weaken you over time, that cutting off your access would make you smaller, louder, desperate to be let back in. That's precisely how their system has always worked in the past. Remove access, starve attention, patiently wait for an inevitable collapse. It's worked on plenty of people before you, so reliably that they eventually stopped even questioning whether it would work again. It didn't work on you at all. You didn't disappear quietly into loneliness the way they expected. You upgraded your entire network while they were still busy guarding the gates to a structure that was already quietly decaying from the inside. You connected instead with people who don't require any gates whatsoever. No titles, no formal ceremonies, no permission slips required in advance. Just mutual recognition, the kind that never asks who you know, only what you've personally survived, and what you're actually capable of building next. Imagine them proudly shutting down an old landline, congratulating themselves on cutting off communication completely. They never once considered that you switched over to satellites years earlier, an entirely different infrastructure, with a completely different reach, totally invisible to any of their existing monitoring tools. Real networks never announce themselves loudly. They simply recognize each other on sight, quietly, without fanfare. You found other people who had opted out of the same broken system exactly like you did. People who don't waste energy arguing with systems. They simply bypass them entirely and keep moving. Number 8. No one is coming to save you, because you were never actually in any danger that required saving. Warnings exist purely for people walking directly into danger, not for people who are calmly walking straight out of a cage they finally recognized as a cage. This is the exact part that drives them slowly insane with confusion. They're still waiting, patiently, for someone to pull you aside, lower their voice dramatically, and say something like, "Hey, I just want to make sure you really know what you're doing here." They keep expecting a specific moment where you finally hesitate, where old doubt creeps quietly back into your voice, where you second-guess the entire path you've chosen. That moment never arrives, because you're not spiraling out of control, you're not lost, and you're certainly not self-destructing. You're finally, completely aligned with yourself for the first time in years. And that is the one single outcome they never planned for or prepared themselves to handle. Number 9. They're still arguing loudly inside a room that's already flooding around their ankles, while you're already standing outside, completely dry, quietly building something entirely new. You don't abandon a genuinely sinking ship through endless debate. You simply leave it behind entirely, and let it sink into the water on its own schedule. This is exactly where the split between you and them becomes fully permanent. They're still trapped inside their own collapsing world, talking in tight little circles, repeating the exact same tired ideas louder and louder, hoping sheer volume alone will somehow fix genuine decay. Same beliefs, same rules, same recycled advice, passed hand to hand like it's timeless wisdom, instead of the exact thing that failed them originally. Every single conversation they have now exists purely to reassure each other that absolutely nothing needs to change on their end. Meanwhile, you're already long gone, building somewhere entirely new, without waiting around for their permission or approval. Number 10. No one ever warns a genuine force of nature to calm down. They study it carefully instead, from a respectful distance. Here's the final, uncomfortable reality they're eventually forced to swallow whole. No one is coming to tell you to stop. And it's not because people are too scared to speak up honestly. It's because there is genuinely nothing left to correct or fix. Who exactly is going to warn you that you're becoming too free, too independent, too capable of directing your own life? That sentence doesn't even make logical sense outside of a collapsing system desperately trying to protect itself. Warnings exist specifically to prevent damage from occurring. You aren't causing any damage at all. You're simply producing consistent results, one after another, without needing anyone's blessing first. Number 11. They were never actually afraid of your failure. They are absolutely terrified of your proof. Nothing frightens a system built entirely on control quite like a success it never officially authorized in the first place. This is the fear they will never, under any circumstances, say out loud to anyone, including themselves. They never actually wanted to see you destroyed completely. That outcome would have been simple enough to explain away to everyone watching. What they truly wanted was for you to be paused, gently redirected, softened around the edges, until you were manageable again. They wanted a rescue story, a neat little intervention scene where someone pulls you safely back into something familiar and controllable. That moment never came, because you never needed saving in the first place. You needed space, and the moment you finally claimed it for yourself, everything they secretly hoped wouldn't happen started happening anyway. Quietly, cleanly, with absolutely no fingerprints belonging to them anywhere near it. Number 12. The exact second they finally understood you were completely out of their range. The worst possible moment for them was never simple rejection. It was the slow, sinking realization that access itself was permanently gone, with no way back. This is the moment everything inside them quietly drops. Not dramatically, not through shouting or open confrontation. It happens silently, and that silence is exactly what breaks them the most. They reach out casually at first, testing old familiar tactics. A message here, a comment there, a subtle probe carefully disguised as harmless familiarity. Nothing lands the way it used to land anymore. Not because you're deliberately ignoring them, but because you are genuinely, structurally, no longer there to be reached at all. Number 13. Your silence was never an act of kindness toward them. It was the verdict, delivered without a single word spoken. Silence isn't confusion dressed up as patience. It is a conclusion, fully reached, with nothing left to appeal. This is exactly where it all ends, and not remotely in the way any of them expected it to end. They assumed your silence meant you were still quietly thinking things over, still processing, still somehow open to one final conversation, where everything could be explained away, softened, and neatly repaired between you. They waited around for a response they could actually work with. It never came, not because you were hurt, not because you were scared of confrontation, but simply because there was truly nothing left worth saying to them anymore. You didn't go quiet in order to punish them for what they did. You went quiet because the entire case was already closed permanently, with no appeal process available and no retrial scheduled. Number 14. Too late was never actually a message meant for you at all. It was the diagnosis, delivered directly to them. Too late isn't an insult hurled in anger. It's simply a timestamp recorded accurately, whether anyone in that room liked the timing or not. This is exactly where every single piece finally clicks into place for good. That smile, those two quiet words, they were never aimed at you, were never meant to stop you, scare you, or slow you down in any way. Too late wasn't rejection. It wasn't cruelty dressed up as honesty. It wasn't arrogance either. It was simple confirmation, nothing more and nothing less. They wanted a warning delivered specifically for you, because they genuinely believed you were about to make a serious mistake. What they could never quite accept, no matter how long they sat with it, is that the real mistake had already happened long before that meeting, and it was never yours to begin with. It was theirs, years earlier, back when they first misread your quiet stillness as weakness, instead of what it actually was. Patient, deliberate strategy playing out exactly on schedule. By the time they finally worked up the courage to ask someone to warn you, the universe itself had already moved on without waiting for their permission. Momentum had already chosen its own direction, quietly, in the background, long before anyone in that room noticed the shift taking place. You were never approaching some dangerous cliff edge the way they feared. You had already, calmly, walked straight past the entire trap without so much as a backward glance in its direction. You simply cannot warn someone honestly after the door behind them has already closed for good. That's exactly why those two words landed the way they did. Flat, calm, completely final, without a trace of drama attached to them, because nothing was actively unfolding in that moment anymore. It had already fully unfolded, days or weeks earlier, and they were simply, finally, catching up to a realization that arrived far too late to matter to anyone but themselves. None of what you just heard tonight was ever meant to hype you up artificially. It was meant, from the very first word, to settle you completely, permanently, into the calm you've already earned. The shift already happened, quietly, in the background, exactly when it needed to. The warnings arrived far too late to matter, and in truth, they were never really meant for you in the first place. They were meant for the people who sent them, as a private confession disguised as concern. The doors closed quietly behind you some time ago, and nothing left standing back there can reach you at the distance you've already traveled. If this landed exactly the way it was meant to land tonight, take a moment right now and like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop 777 in the comments below to mark that you're staying fully on this course, no matter what waits ahead. Send this specific message to the one person in your life who genuinely needs to hear it today, right now, before the moment passes them by completely. This chapter, the one you just lived through, is finally closed for good. The next one has already quietly started, without asking a single soul in that old room for permission first.